All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 meeting of the Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Sarah Lots.
Joshua Dykstra.
Betsy Barras.
Dan Walsh.
Pat Coachella.
Carl Bouchard.
Jason Swan.
Yeah, room.
Yeah.
We have a full house tonight. I don't have any particular comments. So let's do the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
I wasn't there, somebody else.
You got it? I move to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 15th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
I wasn't there.
Note that Carl abstains. Okay. First order of business is the recessed public hearing for Z-24-081, 124 Moose Hill Road, Belinsky Farm cider tasting. Where do we stand with that? Want to read the correspondence, Carl?
I'll read the correspondence on this application. This from Glenn Belinsky, principal of Moose Hill Cider, 124 Moose Hill Road, Oxford. Dear Oxford P&Z Commissioners, the following issues were raised at the October 15th public hearing for Moose Hill Cider. 1, safety. Safety is of utmost concern for all businesses to avoid injury and harm to anyone. All accidents must be avoided in order for us to stay in business and to avoid lawsuits. On the website, we will direct patrons to come from the east side of the farm, Great Hill Road, instead of the west side from Route 188 to reduce traffic on the sharp bends of the road between the farm and Route 188. 2, inebriation. Inebriated patrons will not be served. In accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 30-16 in 2023, patrons are allowed 1 tasting of 2 total ounces per day. Patrons are not allowed to open bottles they have purchased and drink them on the premises. 3, parking. Ample parking is required by the town, as shown on the site plan. 4 additional spots have been added for employee parking. 4, pollution. No cooking is required to make cider and wine, and the spent apple pomace is fed to cows, so winemaking is a very environmentally friendly activity. 5, production. Our goal is to make 3,000 gallons a year. 6, hours of operation. In accordance with state statute 30-16, the winery must close at 8 p.m. Typical hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All events as allowed by Oxford ordinances must be pre-approved by the town. 7, noise. Music. In keeping with the rural, quiet nature of the community and concerns of neighbors, we will not have loud music events at Belinsky Farm. Dated November 11th, 2024.
Have we heard back from Jim Gallagher on this? Where do we stand if we recess this?
We get his report. From a recess or from closing? Does the commission have any concerns or questions at this time? Yes. Last page of the application. Actually, last two pages. There's one before that.
I need someone to tell me, like, you know, we can't, what are we looking for? Well, I'm getting to the letter, those are the minutes. I don't want me getting sick by scrolling too fast. Here's the letter. Here's what we're. No, I'm just trying to please the public and make everything, make this, use this to its fullest.
All right. My only concern is the discussion of events. Because farm events are a different application. Does anyone have any comment on that?
I think the way that the farming event, it was outside of normal farming type activities. And he would have to come in through with another application, right, outside of it, clearly stating in here that he's gonna follow the current ordinances and regulations as we've outlined. So if we're talking a hayride, right, we've already determined that that's sort of in the scope of normal operating ability, ability event types or what have you. If he's gonna be holding now wedding venues, then that's a whole nother ballgame, and he needs to come in for an application. That would be the way that I interpret the last regulation amendment we made.
Farm events, and then there's this.
There are inherently accepted events that can occur on a farm. They're a native type event to that, right? We're talking about
Apple picking,
we're talking agritourism. That's a whole other category, and that's now covered under the newest regulation that we added, which would require him to come in for an application and then file what events would be occurring with Steve. I think we're fairly covered there. So if he starts, having wedding events, then we would have to have that
Make it
discussion.
a condition of approval that yes, file an application for a special event,
I would think so.
such as a wedding or something like that.
I would akin that though to also saying, well, if he wants to make it a construction yard, then he has to come in. It's known that like he would have to follow the regulations as they're printed, and that's our normal conditions of approval, that you have to follow the town regulations. So if he's gonna start having weddings there, he has to come in before with an application, has to be heard, it's a special exception, all of that stuff. So making it would just be a overly redundant thing, I think, to add it as another bullet point.
Yeah, the same way the farm on, Newgate.
Same idea, right? He had to come in, he had to follow the process now that we had established it. I mean, if we're making it a condition of approval here, then does that mean every public hearing, every special exception, we have to tack that on? I mean, he has to follow the regulations of the town. So, which, I mean, Glenn's obviously stating that here as one of the concerns that came out of here, but there is a regulation covering that.
Else? Does, yeah. Does anyone in the public have a comment or concern over this application? Oh, okay. Added parking spaces, is that on the new drawings? Yeah, we would need a copy of that new site plan.
I guess the question would be, was that filed already? Like, was the update filed?
So he had spaces for staff, that he added 4 spaces, but I don't know where. Well, can't table it, we have to.
Put it on the last one.
We have to recess the public hearing.
Top left is where the additional parking he's talking about. Said added, he didn't say took from.
Yeah, if we,
If I may ask a question,
sure, we,
are we able to close the public hearing knowing that we need the updated site plan? We still have to go through the approval of this. Can that site plan be submitted and us be able to see that during deliberations? Or do we need that to be submitted while the public hearing is? Okay. Do we have time to vote next meeting to close? Okay, so we need the extension to do it.
That then, we'll recess and get the extension from him.
Two weeks.
We needed that second, that next meeting to deliberate on it and make a decision anyhow, so if we can close and deliberate, we wouldn't lose any time on the applicant's side.
We have to wait. It's as simple as that. Write something up and let him sign. Well, we should have that before that meeting.
We need Jim Galligan's review also. Need a motion to recess. I'll make a motion to recess application Z-24-081 Belinsky Farm cider tasting to the next P and Z meeting on December 3rd.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Okay. This next one is I can talk to Kevin. The individual has been evicted and his check bounced.
Okay.
I gotta find out what we have to do to clear this off our docket. On this next one, Z-24-083, 71 Oxford Road, Oxmoor Package Store. We have a letter from, is that in the packet? Yep. Okay. Yeah. That letter.
Okay. A letter from Burtville Associates dated November 13th, 2024, to Steve McCary, the zoning enforcement official. The subject is JM LLC John Ingersoll. It reads, Steve, Wally Archer asked me to let you know that John Ingersoll is no longer at 71 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, 06478, Unit C. He has been evicted. If you need anything else, let us know. Nancy Pruding of Oxford Park LLC.
How do we deal with this now? These are the ones that are coming in. So first we have to dispose of Z-24-083.
Table it and let it come off, sorry.
Application.
Well, that's what I want a legal opinion on. Do we have to deny it, or do we have to just scratch it out? You know, what's the deal?
Well, and this is for a public hearing, right?
Yeah.
So do we just table the public hearing, let it fall off, and then the applications? Yeah, I get it.
Right.
Sorry, real quick. So, but we have it scheduled for a public hearing, not to decide on the application.
It's scheduled.
It's scheduled, so that's the next one.
It's scheduled
Right.
for today?
Yes.
But today, right, so let's just deny it.
We're supposed to open it today, so
Is the applicant, did he already pay for the public hearing?
Okay, so he came in, he filled out the application.
Z-24-083.
That's the application that he, that, then the check bounced. And the gentleman who was applying, John, evicted. That was the letter that Steve got. So that's
Well, we're doing no right because it's an incomplete application.
Yes, so we can cancel it. Cancel the public hearing, do the fees.
Close it. Add it under amendment.
Another question, if we, if we open the public hearing, who's gonna pay the $700 for the public hearing?
Neither here nor there for us.
I mean, I just don't wanna see, you know, later on, somebody come after this guy for $700 for a public hearing and you pay for it. I understand, but I'm just trying to give the guy a break. All right.
Okay, open this public hearing, Z-24-083, 71 Oxford Road, Oxbow Package Store. Okay, does anyone on the commission have any comments?
None.
Is the applicant here?
Okay. Does anyone in the public have a comment? Does anyone in the public have a comment? Does anyone in the public have a comment? Back to the commission. Does any commissioners have any comments or questions? Okay. Then I take a motion to close this public hearing.
I move to close public hearing for Z-24-083.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Now, okay. Okay. All righty. Regular meeting business, amendments to the agenda. Look at that.
I already had one. His invoice. Or it was in my packet. First Amendment. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add an invoice from McSherry Law Office to the agenda as item B under invoices.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay. Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
Yeah, I guess I'll make a motion to add Z-24-083 under new business item 2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, I'm not. I'm responsible for everything that's working properly. Jessica and Josh, that is on me.
One that's purring like a kitten? That's the one.
That's ours. Fern's ours.
That'll be under new business. So, all righty. So we need a motion to amend the agenda again. To add Z-24-115 under new business, item 2. 3? Oh, yeah, we're up to 3, sorry.
I'll make a motion to add Z-24-115, 71 Oxford Road, under new business item 3.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Do we have any correspondence? No. Okay. Audience of citizens for items not listed on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment thing? Please.
Get away with using my mom voice. I just wanted to share some information that came out of the Connecticut Farm Bureau. But I want to start by commending our Planning and Zoning Commission for the steps that you've taken to protect agriculture in the town of Oxford, including agritourism and the other regulations that you've helped craft to protect the small farmer and ensure that we have this livelihood available to people in Oxford, and of course, we hope to maintain it in Connecticut. But I want to share some numbers with you so that you understand just how critical your support of our farmers is. From 2017 to 2022, the U.S. lost nearly 142,000 farms, according to the census. In Connecticut, in that same time period, we lost 463 farms that stopped operating. 32 dairy farms went out of business. Dairy was once a major industry here, and now only makes up 13% of our agricultural sales. Greenhouse and nursery products have gone up. Other important products that we produce in Connecticut on our farms include eggs, apples, hay, shellfish, believe it or not, it's considered a farm, and tobacco. And our number of organic farmers also decreased from 62 in 2017 to 57 in 2022. The United States lost more than 20 million farming acres. Of that, 9,525 of them were Connecticut farmland during that same time period, 2017 to 2022. So the average size of Connecticut farms has increased slightly, but the total number of farming acres was down 2.5% to 372,000. So again, I just wanted to share this with the board to, again, thank you for the work that you undertake to try and keep our farmers going so that they have the opportunity to augment their businesses, because we know that all it takes is one natural disaster to wipe them out. And it's so easy to cut and run and sell to someone who wants to put up industry, houses, whatever the case may be in the town. So your work is, it's critical, it's appreciated, and I wanted you to have context of just how critical it is and how many people you're helping to protect, not to mention the food we eat. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Hearing none. Okay, moving on to old business. Z-24-089, 6 Skyline Drive. It's a special exception to construct a 1,064 square foot barn and accessory apartment. However, the accessory apartment is not 1,064 square feet. It's in our, in the documentation, it's substantially less. So, close the public hearing on 10:15. Do we have a motion for this? Or
I want to recuse myself because I wasn't here for the public.
Look at me, Josh.
I do. All right, Z-24-0889, 6 Skyline Drive, owner and applicant Diamond Rosa, 6 Skyline Drive. Special exception, construct a 1,064 square foot barn and accessory apartment per Article 5, Section 5.2.5. The applicant submitted the following in support of its application. Application dated 9/11/24, site plan dated 9/10/24, specification, project information dated 8/20/24, foundation plan, garage plan, upper level construction plan dated 8/20/2024. I move that the application be approved with the following findings and conditions. The commission makes the following findings. The proposed use will not be detrimental to health, safety, welfare, property value in the neighborhood. 2, the site is suitably landscaped, and the design and setback of buildings and other structures are adequate to protect property and preserve the appearance and character of the neighborhood. The proposed use, buildings, and other structures are adequate to carry the potential traffic, and that provision is made for entering and leaving the site in such a manner that no traffic hazards will be created, and that the adequate off-street parking and loading facilities were provided. And 4, the land in which the use, building, or other structure is of adequate dimensions to conduct the use in such a manner that it will not be detrimental to adjoining properties in the neighborhood. I move that the application be approved with the following conditions. 1, compliance of all Town of Oxford regulations and ordinances in effect as of this date. The applicant will be required to pay all costs of special consultants or studies as deemed necessary by the commission at any time during the period from the initial review through inspection and final acceptance of any improvement. The applicant and his assigns must comply with all representations made at the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings or at public hearings regarding this application period. The specific uses on the property shall be limited to those designated within the statement of use submitted by the applicant. The building shall be used as presented by the applicant. The applicant shall comply with all requirements of the fire marshal. The applicant shall obtain all necessary licensing and permits as may be required by other agencies. Site plan approval expires if the work has not been completed within 5 years from the approval date. Sedimentation and erosion control measures on site shall be maintained in compliance with the proposed site plan and current guidelines, subject to field review by the commission's engineer. The applicant shall have a pre-construction meeting with appropriate town staff prior to any construction activities. The applicant shall submit 1 copy of the set of plans which reflect these conditions of approval to the zoning enforcement officer. The applicant shall provide an A2 survey with the driveway shown on said map to the zoning enforcement officer.
Do I have a second for discussion?
Second for discussion. Page. He's got the foundation plan for garage, upper level. And on the application, it's a barn. Do we have to clarify that it's gonna be a garage or a barn? Because just verifying, it's gotta be either garage or a barn. You got on one page, you got a barn, on the other page, you got a garage foundation. Right here. The application itself says a barn. I'm not trying to throw a wrench in it, I'm just saying that. Yeah, I want to leave. Exactly, I want to match along with ground, it says the foundation.
One spot.
I don't care which way you label it, you know, farm or barn, but, or garage or barn, but it should be the same thing.
Matter, Kevin?
Call it a garage?
Is that all right, Mr. Rosa?
Yeah, you can't talk to him. We're in deliberations, he can't talk to us.
I mean, I get the one change, I mean, effectively, it's, I don't know, I guess legal, from your legal expertise.
Okay. Okay. And do we have to specify that the accessory apartment is not 1,064 square feet?
Yeah, I think,
Just trying to make sure we've got everything. The architecturals that were submitted and so on. Okay. I remember it was, we had documentation that it was less than the maximum for an accessory apartment.
right, and so he submitted the upper level construction plan showing us that, and we're stating that he's, you know, abiding by all representations made, so I don't know if we need necessarily an extra bullet there. My opinion on that.
I just, want to make sure we've got.
Going to clarify
I's
here,
dotted and
right?
our T's crossed.
Yeah.
Zone on the site plan,
That's right.
because it was a single site. So actually, the accessory apartment has nothing to do with the garage.
I remember that coming up when we did that, yeah. That's a separate item that didn't need a public hearing, so we were just going on the actual structure itself.
Okay.
Thanks, Jess.
Okay. All right. Everyone is satisfied? All right. Everyone okay with this? I'm good. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain. That wasn't a public hearing.
Motion carries. Okay. Now we're on to new business. C-24-102, 441 Oxford Road. Owner of First Oxford House, applicant Carp Associates, application subdivision, 2 lots. Randall Estates.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Chris Pulowski. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of Connecticut, here with Civil One, offices in Woodbury, Connecticut, on behalf of the applicant. Talk about a rather simple subdivision right down the road here, 441 Oxford Road. The property is currently home to the Oxford House Tavern. That is the existing commercial building on the street side. Behind the Oxford House Tavern is Little River. And then there is a significant wetland area, and the property extends all the way up to Randall Drive. So if you picture Governor Hill, there's the cemetery, then the property kind of in a row in that manner. So Randall Drive was a subdivision that was constructed shortly after 2010, I want to say 2012 to 2014. This property was not a part of that subdivision, but the road was put in. So now fast forward to 2024, the owner of the property would like to construct a single-family house that now the address would be on Randall Drive. So the Oxford House Tavern, the restaurant, everything associated with that would remain the exact same. That would be proposed Lot 2. And then Lot 1 would become a new single-family house on Randall Drive. So that is the plans that I have before you. Single-family residence, we did receive wetland approval at their last meeting or the meeting before. It was in October. So we did already wrap that up. We are proposing a conservation easement as part of the parcel. Originally, we were proposing open space, but it's rather peculiar piece of open space. So the Wetlands Commission opted, they'd rather have a conservation easement instead. So the Oxford House Tavern and the Little River, and then a little bit of the area behind such is going to remain as Lot 2. And then there's a area in between the proposed single-family residence on Randall Drive and the wetlands, which is going to remain conservation area. So Lot 1, the single-family residence, will be 3.25 acres, and then the Oxford House Tavern will have 4.08 acres. The property is 7.33 acres in size. We would have loved to get another house on the property, but there's really no access to the interior where the conservation easement is, or is going to remain, or is proposed, because the wetlands are behind the Oxford House Tavern, and there's a stream that kind of extends underneath Randall Drive. So we're here before you, quite simply for the subdivision. It's not eligible for a first cut. We did have our surveyor look into that. So again, one single-family residence. We did receive our wetland approval. We are proposing conservation easement area. It's going to be served by septic and a well. The Oxford House Tavern is served by public water, but the infrastructure does not exist within Randall Drive or Governor's Hill Road, and it's infeasible to bring the public water down Randall Drive for one house. So they're going to have a well, a septic system. We do have some small stormwater chambers to treat the roof runoff proposed from the development. And again, the entrance to that single-family house is going to be off Randall Drive. Should be short and sweet. I don't want to take up too much of your time. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'd like to see a site.
We have a site plan,
Yeah,
right?
we have it here. Sorry.
Thank you. I believe I did, yes. There should be small copies too. You don't want to look at a large map. But we aren't asking for any waivers or anything. It meets all the standard subdivision regulations. We aren't proposing any new roads, just accessing the one driveway off Randall Drive.
Does it meet the regulations for road frontage?
I apologize, I couldn't hear you.
Does it meet the regulation for road frontage?
Yes, it does. Both the Lot 2, the Oxford House Tavern, and the proposed Lot 1 of the single-family house.
It's the lot one I'm concerned with.
Yes, they both meet the required frontage.
Oxford House Tavern is what,
Yeah, they have
800, 900
hundreds of
feet, yeah.
Hundreds of feet. Exactly.
I'm just concerned with the. I can't remember off the top of my head, what's the road frontage requirement? It's 200.
200 feet required, and we're proposing 265.
265 there?
265, that is correct, sir.
Yeah.
Flip to sheet C 2.1, there's a little zoning table chart in the top left, and it has all the setbacks and everything, so. Go ahead.
Public road.
Here's Randall.
No, totally understand. So the road
Hold
width
on.
is 30 feet per the town standards, but there's the right-of-way the town of Oxford owns is 50 feet wide in the area, so it's going to cross over the right-of-way to the actual paved portion of the road. Correct. Correct. Correct, yes, exactly.
Well, that's the driveway. Here's the road frontage. 5244. Oh, Little River, it's way up over here. Go.
Yes. Yes. Should be,
Table, it says it's less than 25.
square a little bit, but I see how it goes over the setback. I understand what you're saying, yes. I think we can just easily move over the building square to accommodate that, but I appreciate the concern.
This brown line is a building square. More or less flat area, because it gets drastic over here. Little River is up over here, right through here, right behind the. So you come up Governor's Hill, right, and Randall is a right turn off of Governor's. Yeah, it's got the cemetery on the corner, which are these two. There's actually two cemeteries there.
That's
Yeah.
correct, yes. There's two cemeteries, correct.
Yeah, this is from the United Church, and this one's St. Peter's. Yeah. I'm a little bit, and I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but you tell me there's 200 and something foot of road frontage,
That is correct.
and I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing, what, 38, 44, and 52. You can walk over here and,
Drive was developed in 2014. There was a pension pond installed here in town right. This is all road frontage because the town owns this. So you're counting from this corner all the way to this corner, so you add up all these distances. Basically, from here to here. When they built the houses, they installed a detention pond right
Here,
here.
right.
It's now, overgrown and flooded out.
so,
So the road frontage is counted from this point to this point.
Right, here to here.
Yep.
And I'm saying, I got 38, 44.
There's some tags here because there's so many jogs, our surveyor put them.
Okay,
So
'cause
he had-
this,
if you
yeah,
had
this
10
is, this
plus
is
30.
north, and then, well, I'm reading this as west 1401. Am I misreading this?
No, so you have 52 feet here.
Yeah.
Then you have 26 feet. Then you have 44 feet. Then you have 24 feet.
Okay.
Then you have 10 feet. Then you have 20 feet. And then you have 32.
Okay.
Sorry, it's it's
Yeah.
all those. It's so many little jogs that we couldn't put them all on the line. So we had to point to
All right, I got it, okay. Well, that's what I'm saying, that this guy is 52, but then there's a section here, right here, that's 26. But they didn't, they put it here instead of writing it there. See the arrows? That's what all these arrows are.
That's
The
correct.
extra footage that they couldn't fit on the
Yeah,
drawing.
there's so many little jogs.
Yeah,
we
there's
couldn't
little jogs, it's a,
get to read.
it's a wiggle, it's a wiggly.
Go ahead. Not a first cut. It was 1977. I believe the zoning rights were October 1959, but a piece was split off.
Resub?
77 split off the parcel next door to it.
Sure.
Yep. Correct.
Because it's actually, isn't that, isn't the Oxford House Tavern in the Oxford Center zone?
I believe it's actually in the residential zone, but it's just an existing non-conforming use. So by doing this subdivision, attorney is correct. You'd bring it in, the property into more conformance with the zoning regs because the rear part would be split and be constructed as residential.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Less non-conforming.
Less non-conforming.
All right. So then we'll have to set up a public hearing date.
Understood. So we'll work with land use office and see you guys at
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Yeah, can we set that tonight? Tell me a date.
Get December 3rd, December 17th. How much time, I forget what the timing is that you need before then. Yeah, to notice it. It's the 17th, oops. The 7th of January. 3rd of the, it goes into the new year.
Do I have a motion to set the public hearing date for December 3rd, 2024 for Z-24-102?
Sure. I move to set a public hearing for Z-24-102, 441 Oxford Road for December 3rd at 7:30 PM. At 7:30 PM at this location.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All righty. Zoning
Okay.
enforcement, Steve is out on medical
No,
leave.
no, we added two new items
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry.
Z 24-083.
I would imagine we could make it pretty quick and dirty. I'll move to deny application Z-24-083, given the correspondence we received today.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay.
And we also added Z-24-115.
Okay. So, public hearing? Okay, accept the application? Okay. We haven't do anything, right? Okay. All right. Now we do zoning enforcement.
Steve's-
Steve is out on medical leave, so we're just kind of pass on that. Okay, and the first order of business under other, oh, wait a minute, we have invoices.
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 I have two invoices. The first is from Halloran Sage for reference Cornerstone Assembly of God applications for professional services rendered. It's dated November 7th, 2024, invoice number 114-54391. It's in the amount of $855. I make a motion to approve it.
Do you have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
I have another invoice from the McSherry Law Office to the Town of Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission, dated 11/15/2024. It's in the amount of $3,232 for land use work provided.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Okay. Other business, A, East Point Energy presentation.
Jesse's got this. Go. No, thank you.
Because I know that this is pretty small.
Thank you. Fine. No, that was a different group. Same lot, different group. The reason the lot is desirable for this is because of its proximity to the substation and the power lines and all of that nonsense.
Huh?
Daphne went to
Adobe.
Yeah, it's a PDF, yeah. I feel like that's the format. Let me know. If it's not working out, I'll start.
sign and everything.
Okay. Hi, Chairman, Commissioners. My name's Alicia Kaiser, and I'm here on behalf of East Point Energy. And the reason I'm here tonight is to give y'all some more information regarding our battery energy storage project. The town should have received email from the siting council on about 10/28 with a link to all the other supplementary documents that go along with this application. So I'm just gonna run through the project and then you can ask questions along the way if you want, or wait till the end. This is, supposed to be a discussion, so our site, Oxford Energy Center, that's the title of it, is located on North Larky Road. It is in an industrial area, and this is gonna mean pretty much nothing to you, but it's a 17.3 megawatt project, and it can go for a 4-hour duration. So that means that if for some reason the power was to go out or we needed to supplement the power in the area, it could give approximately 17.3 megawatts for a 4-hour duration. What does that mean in layman's terms? That means that we could supply approximately 13,000 homes with power for 4 hours. And you probably know, but the town of Oxford is thereabouts 13,000. So, in theory, we could almost provide the whole entire town with power for 4 hours. This is going to interconnect with a substation that is adjacent to the project. And like I said before, we feel like the zoning is appropriate because it's surrounded by other industrial properties. And there's no impacts to cultural resources or historic areas, and there's no impact to threatened or endangered species. There will be a minor impact to wetlands, and that is only because the poles that have to interconnect to the substation will have to go through the 100-foot wetland buffer. So it's not actually in the wetlands, it's in the wetland buffer. But other than that, that will be the only disturbance. And that's approximately 1,600 square feet of proposed disturbance within the 100-foot wetland buffer. And then I can't see what I have up here. This is the site plan. We can bring that closer to you if you want to. Okay. And this is just a site plan of, site and what it will look like. And this is what I was talking about where it'll go through the wetland buffer. That on this level.
The poles right there, is that what you're talking about, going into wetlands?
Yeah, these are just like you see along the road, you know, when you're going down the road, telephone or power pole.
And the left side of the poles, what is that? Is that the road?
Yeah, so one of the studies we had to do for the siting council is the noise study. Oxford's noise ordinance. And even though we don't exceed noise ordinance or noise limits for this project, we had added this here, which is additional noise mitigation. Because we know about, I think it's like 1,000 plus feet. So just extra, you know, trying to go a little bit further and beyond.
It's in the packet. Talking about like just left of
I have a
it.
question.
Yes.
What kind of batteries are they?
So these batteries are lithium. That's where I was going next. Way to go. These batteries are lithium ion batteries. I'm sure you've heard of lithium ion batteries. They're in our phones, they're in our computers. I mean, they're in electric vehicles, they're in the scooters that are around. But the main difference between the lithium ion batteries and this container and what you see around is our batteries are utility grade. So that means they're highly regulated, highly tested, fire rated. I mean, they go through extensive testing and rigorous testing to make sure that they are the utmost standard and design. And they adhere to the NFPA 855 National Electric Code. And we actually have Sean Morris right there. He's from ESRG, and he's our fire safety consultant. And then our lovely engineer and environmental, Steve Coaches is here. So they can actually answer any additional, like, further detailed questions. Yep.
Would our fire department need to have special training in case there was a fire with these batteries?
Great question. So we have already actually preliminarily met with the fire department. We've had a basic fire session on battery energy storage systems and what to expect, and kind of the preliminary of what you do if there is an incident. And we are developing, and we have to develop for our siting application, an emergency response plan. And throughout this process, we will be doing more advanced training. That's what actually Sean is here for. He will be training firefighters, training them what to do in case there is an incident. And we have 24/7 monitoring for these batteries. We always know what's going on, level of charge. If there is something going awry, we can shut it down or discharge the unit. And we will be in contact with the fire department if the need arises. But as to your question, sorry, I kind of got off the
Has the
track there.
Oxford Fire Department been involved in this
Yes.
process yet?
Yes, Scott Pelletier, he told me today that he couldn't be here this evening, but he was going to correspond with the commission, so I don't know if he had spoken to y'all today or not. I guess not. But yes, we had a session here on 5:30 over at the fire station, and I'd say like 12 firefighters maybe, or 15 attended and received this basic preliminary, training. And to your question about specialized equipment, no, there does not need to be specialized equipment.
That's because you let them burn out, right?
That's correct. Look at you.
Yeah, I know. And what's the failure rate?
The failure rate, I don't know that offhand.
I
Off
can
the
tell
top
you
of
it's
my brain.
15%.
No.
Yes.
No. Oh, you go. Yes. Sean, you go.
EPRA. 50, did you say? 15. There's 450 units in the U.S. Out of 450 units in the U.S., there's 16 of them failed. That's right from the, where the hell did I get it from? The EPRA. the Energy Power Research Institute. The place where they failed was California 5 times, New York was 4, Arizona 3, Missouri 1, Oregon 1, Illinois 1, and Hawaii 1. And that's just in this country. In the other countries, there was a bigger failure rate. Australia had 3, China had 2, France had 2, Taiwan had 2, Belgium had 1, UK had 4, Germany had 1, and Japan had 1, and they're increasing. And in 2023, it was the failure rate went up instead of down.
So I can speak to that a little bit. And yeah, and again, just to introduce, my name's Sean Morris. I'm with ESRG. We're Energy Safety Response Group. East Point's engaged with us purely as fire and life safety consultants. I've been a fire chief in Fairfield County I've been in the fire service for 25 years. I'm a fire chief in Fairfield County. I've been an AHJ, fire marshal in the state of Connecticut for 20 years. So a lot of times I serve as a translator between clients, boards, panels, and that communication goes all ways. Just to address a couple things first, yeah, the engagement of the fire department's huge. I've been a firefighter for 30 years. Firefighters is, 150 years of tradition unimpeded by progress. So when I bring them new things and we have a great dialogue, we realize when we have that engagement early, it's successful for everyone. And it makes them feel capable, comfortable, and those things are important. To speak to the failures a couple times, so, and there were,
19 isn't, 15% in a couple times.
right, so
15
that,
times.
when we determine what failure rate is, and my agency's done some work with EPRI, the failures that have been seen, and I can give you some more follow-up information if you're comfortable with that. The failures we've seen is in an emerging technology from some initial first-generation installations. NFPA 855 came out in the last 5 years. This is about 10 years where we've seen US installations of these when we're talking about large-scale BESS systems. From first-tier providers, the current regulations, NFPA 855, full-scale fire destruction testing, to avoid any propagation or deflagration. The recent requirements of those have only been about the last 2 to 4 years as the technologies emerge, the lithium ion phosphate in these enclosures. These type of enclosures are also very different, and we say we have lithium ion batteries in our phones, our laptops, and we absolutely do. They're all over the place, watches, whatever. These type of systems, when installed, are held to the highest level of safety standards in terms of both UL listing and testing, 9540, 9540A, which is full-scale fire testing, something our company even does where you force them into failure to see what can happen. Failure being a fire, thermal runaway event. And the whole idea is that that fire, that incident, and in the overwhelming majority of those cases that happened from the first generation before any of these safety controls were in place, that never propagates outside that one container. Only 4 injuries to firefighters in the United States have ever happened. That was all in Arizona McBickens incident. And that's why I have a passion for making sure our fire service personnel on top of our public are safe going near any of these things. That was well before, excuse me, NFPA 855 existed. And that's why we realized we need all these safety procedures in place. Our goal is to, engage ideally the manufacturers and then the operators to say, hey, let's make the safest absolute product possible. So we have no failure rate. The current best estimate of the last 2 years is a failure rate under 1/10% of a BSS system over the lifespan of the entire system. I can get you that document stuff, Stu. I'm familiar with
appreciate that.
What's that?
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Then I'll copy with you on that. So, and when we say failure rate, also, what is a failure? A failure can be, now keep in mind these cells that build the modules, that build the racks. Picture a very large AA battery. A failure of that can be a failure of that singular cell. Doesn't propagate outside that cell, doesn't propagate out of that container, may not spread within the system, and the 9540 testing ensures that if there is a fire event, and I've been engaged in investigating some of these first generation failures, it does not leave that one container. So on that very low percentage of very small amounts of fires that happen, the lack of propagation is what we want to avoid. That kind of for the EPRI events, and also the failure rate initial analysis accounted for, I believe, 23 in South Korea, it probably lists, between 2014 and 2019, which was South Korea having a very specific way of installing their systems that they realized was inaccurate, and that tilted a lot of those first-gen statistics. The Australia one was a tier one provider. What we're seeing from the safety side, and again, Alicia knows, I put firefighter and civilian safety first before any money they can make, anything like that. I have a passion for that. The failure in Australia was a tier one manufacturer that had a slight design failure. That slight design failure led fire to spread from one unit slightly to another and then put itself out. And because of that, they completely revamped every single installation that existed in the world. What's happening is we're seeing an industry that recognizes that if it doesn't make communities feel comfortable, fire departments feel safe and capable, not just feel it, actually be it, they won't have the success they need. And my role in the middle is to translate, work with the fire department, work with the HJs, the fire marshals to make sure they feel comfortable about what exists out there.
Because the information I got, it said the U.S. has suffered the second highest number of major storage fires. Not incidents, fires.
Which I'd have to look at that. That's not something I'm familiar with. But yeah, I'd be happy to put together either some, oh, that's okay. I'd be happy to put together some information. And I'm not up here to tell you that there's zero failure on these. I'm not up here to tell you there's zero failures on any gas station or house you build or anything. What I want you guys to see is what the risk profile actually is and what that level of comfort is compared to other utility installations, compared to other similar light industrial use.
I'd like to know if there is a fire, what are the pollutants that would go into the air?
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear that.
What are the pollutants from this fire would go into the air?
Okay. So you're talking about air quality?
Yes.
So that's been a big concern in different communities. What we've seen in two recent failures on the west coast of first generation systems that were installed before any of these safety precautions. I can get you this information too. Both public agencies, private agencies, third-party contractors immediately started air quality monitoring immediately around the site, during the event, post-event. Don't quote me, but a certain amount of days after the event. I don't know that number off the top of my head. And they found no difference in toxicity from a structure fire in a home or a gas station or a shed.
You're telling me that these batteries, if they caught fire, has no difference than a house fire?
In terms of the toxicity of the smoke that spreads beyond the module, I can show you some of the
Talking about
research
the
that's been on that.
Any particles that would come from these batteries?
Are there particles?
Yeah, they would caught fire with particles in the air.
So in part of that 9540 testing UL item, so in the air within the container, yes. What 9540 doesn't allow is any propagation of anything outside of the container structure. And when we say container, it's generally, think of a Connex box kind of. Yeah.
My main concern is Oxford has like 80-some-odd% wells, residential area.
There's also been a lot of interesting studies on water runoff separately from the air quality. Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in.
Yep, I can follow up with more of that information.
I have those reports too,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I guess my question would be, are these self-containing systems? So if that there isn't an emergency event, are they designed to try to contain any leakage, smoke escaping from them as best they can? Obviously, if there's catastrophic failure, is there then what kind of potential, and is there any secondary containment that comes along with this in the event that you have a catastrophic failure and now leakage beyond the container itself occurs?
Yeah, so a couple points to that. So in terms of when you think like secondary containment for, say, like a flammable liquid situation, this doesn't have any liquid beyond general glycol cooling elements, the antifreeze, that would spread that actually listed as hazardous chemicals. So there's no containment per se. The goal actually for failures is the opposite of containment of gases. Again, I speak to the one incident in the United States where we've had injured firefighters in an incident like this, McMicken, Arizona, where it was a completely different type of system. It was what's called a walk-in enclosure. So imagine a Connex box you could walk in the middle of, do work, O&M, maintenance, everything. And it allowed, when there was a failure and when there was flammable and combustible gas coming off of cells, to build up till it reaches a lower explosive limit. I liken it to your gas grill outside, right? Your gas grill's outside, you can run gas, it's fine, it's up, you can run gas, you can burn it, it's fine. If I put a big metal cover over that grill and you turn the gas on, it could allow flammable vapors to reach what's called a lower explosive or lower flammable limit where it could ignite, right? The designs of these systems have multiple, both passive and active safeguards to avoid that happening. Those include emergency ventilation ports, gas sensors, fire sensors, to activate emergency exhaust systems. So the idea in that is actually not containment of any flammable gas, because it's mainly hydrogen that comes off in the thermal runaway vent, is to expel it to the atmosphere.
So lithium ion is a generic term, right? We're used to hearing NiCad and all of that. Do you know what the chemical composition is of these particular?
So I believe Powin uses a, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
it's lithium ion phosphate.
So it's the lithium phosphates.
Is the chemical composition of batteries. There are different, compositions of different battery systems. That will be the composition.
That's the most common we're seeing in what's called tier 1 manufacturers, level 1 manufacturers of the last 2 years, give or take. It's not elemental lithium either, so there's no issue with using water in and around it in terms of reactivity. But generally, as the gentleman said, letting the elements burn themselves out is essentially the goal.
As far as this piece of property goes, who owns that property? Is that town-owned or?
So that's Mr. Sippin, David Sippin, owns it. It's a 23-acre parcel. I guess she could go back. I don't know if you want to go back in the slide where you can see it, but it's over by the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing there because you can't really build anything because of the high transmission lines there, et cetera. So.
I know we've seen, I think this is now the third proposal of something similar going into this property, so I'm just curious as, I guess I get why this property keeps getting targeted.
I
this
don't
proximity.
know I don't know the previous proposals that you're speaking of because I only know ours, so.
Understood. I just didn't know who the who is the property owner actual for that parcel.
Yeah, it's David Sippin.
Okay.
And then if, when we get to that point, we will purchase the property, so we will be the owners of the property.
Question I asked you to begin with. On the other side of the telephone poles, that's Hawley Road? What's on the other side of the telephone poles?
There's
The
nothing.
poles.
In the rendering, there's like a pathway, it looks like, but
The pathway is the transmission line being cleared. Is that what you're,
if you look at your rendering,
oh, okay, yeah.
just didn't know if there was like something.
It's not a path, sorry, it's not a path, it's just, this is so that they
Yeah, what's on the
service
left,
the pole.
what's on the left side of the pole?
It's a path, like a walking path.
It's so they can get in and service these poles.
Would a fire truck get down there? Would a fire truck be able to get down there?
No, because there's,
Yeah, sure.
All right. That'd be the fire department's problem anyhow, so I was just curious about.
Yeah, so one of the things we create is what's called an emergency response plan, and one of our roles as a company and why we're engaged by the energy companies is it's not a, hey, this came with the unit, here's your generic plan. It's specific not only to your department, to this site location, to this exact installation, and part of that is actually laying out that we have sufficient width, access, gate clearance, maintenance of drivable passageways, for those fire apparatus. We also identify for them where a good primary staging point, secondary staging point, and we actually walk them through. I don't want to say we walk them through. We collaboratively come up and engage with them in terms of, okay, if there is everything from an off-gassing incident to a basic beeping alarm, and how do we respond to it, right? So we go through it step by step with them, from everything with where the apparatus should go, and it's collaborative and that's why we like engaging the fire departments and fire marshals early.
Now, I noticed that you show here 24 containers. Is that the size of this installation?
yes. So when you go to the siting council, you're permitting like the area, just like you would come here and do a site plan, you're permitting for that site plan area. Now, how do I explain this? So when you contact the electrical company and you have to do this, it's called an interconnection application. So we can't exceed the megawatts on here. So the containers, the density of the containers are, what am I trying to say here? The megawatts determine the density and configuration of the containers. And so the container size and the amount should not change, or maybe by a couple. Maybe the layout, of inside the facility may change a little bit, but we cannot increase the amount of electricity that we're interconnecting and.
I wasn't talking
discharging
about the
to-
electricity, I was talking about the physical containers. You're showing 24 here.
Yes.
Is that how many containers we're gonna have?
For right now, yes.
Right now, what,
The reason I say that is because technology changes, and if they come out with a better product, like a better Powin product, and, so there may be, maybe the containers change in size or something like that. So, and we can, and it requires more containers. I can't, as the technology progresses and improves and the pods improve, then you may add or subtract a container. But what I'm trying to actually is saying is the profile, the disturbance area, the plan of the facility will not increase. Oh, you can, yeah.
So you're saying for 13,000 homes, you'd have enough electricity there to supply for 4 hours?
Yes.
Is it really worth it?
So what is, I don't know. So what this is, so the purpose of this and the benefit of it to the community is to stabilize the grid. Because we have a lot of intermittent energy sources coming in now, since we have solar and we have wind. And then we still have our, natural gas and coal-powered plants, and, so we have a big mix of energy coming in. So when we are not at peak capacity, and at peak demand, I should say, then we have a lot of excess energy on the grid. So we want to make sure that we utilize that to the greatest extent. So we will pull power, this 17.3 megawatts, we'll pull that off, and we have to pay for it, and put it in the batteries. And we'll store it until that grid needs that. So, when everybody comes home and puts on their lights, or, great demand for AC or heat, because it's really cold here, we can push that back on the grid so that it evens out the power demand. And also, over time, will peak shave, so it'll save money over time.
What would this do for Oxford?
It'll, like I'm saying, it'll even out the grid. It makes the grid more stable for businesses. It ensures you have power. It also will shave money off your electric bill over time. But another great benefit is it's going to be over the life of 20 years. It'll be about $5 million in tax return or taxes for the town of Oxford. So, $5 million can help out the school budget, can help out the fire department, can help out different, things around town.
What happens when these units get used up, when their life is done? What do you do with them then?
So the batteries will be, there's a whole plan for that too, a decommissioning plan that we have to supply and come up with. And the batteries will, which ones, have been used up, will be taken out. They'll be sent to a recycling facility, and then the system is called augmented. So they'll bring new batteries in and put them in to keep them up and running at the same megawatt.
That'd be East Point's problem.
That is totally East Point's problem.
All right, now let me ask you a question. What
Nothing
happens,
on town of Oxford.
what happens if East Point goes out of business?
Well, good thing is that we happen to be owned by we're a subsidiary of a very large energy company, Equinor, and they're the 6th largest energy company in the whole entire globe. So we have a lot of funding, and unless they go out of business, we don't go out of business.
Question for our attorney. Would it be possible to put up a bond, a security bond, environmental security bond, like something like $20 million in case something happens? Is that possible for something like this?
Yeah, so let me move on just a little bit, because that can answer some additional questions I know you're gonna have regarding that. So we're gonna move on just a little bit. Oh,
My question is regarding the energy.
oh, yes.
So it's gonna go to Oxford, because
Yeah,
our
so-
solar farm goes to distressed communities outside of Oxford.
So distribution is more local. It will help more of the local grid, and do that. Now, it doesn't stay in the direct town of Oxford, but it will help the more local area.
so.
Most of it won't help Oxford. They're pulling and pushing power up to the big lines that go far.
No, so I'm just gonna correct you on that. Transmission lines, transmission grade can go further because it's higher voltage, but distribution, we're a lot lower voltage, and so we don't go as far. We stay in, I'm not gonna say right in the town of Oxford, but we're gonna stay more locally. Yeah. It is. It's, what is that for? Stormwater. It's for stormwater. Well, then obviously have to come to.
I notice,
Unfortunately, I don't know.
I notice in your little pictures here, there's gates that are open.
Well,
Is that the normal
no.
condition?
This is a very secure facility. You would not, only people that would be allowed access would be operations and maintenance personnel.
Your monitoring cover incursion into the property or just the
Yes,
equipment?
we will have cameras on site. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Steve Kochis. I'm a licensed engineer in Connecticut. I've been doing land use planning and engineering in the state for 20 years. Devoted the last pretty much 7 years of my life to siting energy projects in Connecticut. I did want to touch on the one question about the use of new technology on these projects, just to add some color to the response. So right now, as Alicia said, we're looking at 24 containers of this size. The Siting Council understands that this technology is always improving. It's improving every month, every year, to be more efficient, to be cheaper, to give better power per square footage. So they implore us as the project teams to use new technology. If we make changes to the plans, we're in the middle of a Siting Council petition right now. So assuming we get our approval there, which we would expect probably sometime early in the next calendar year, we will also be required to go for a development and management plan, which is us going back to the Siting Council with construction documents. And they have to review them again, and you guys would be brought into the picture to be given the opportunity to review the plans as well. So there is a secondary approval process that we have to go through with final electrical plans that have to be reviewed and approved as well. So we can't just make changes and just install whatever we want. Those also have to be approved. To answer your question about the stormwater, I want to make it known that this project is treated exactly the same as any stormwater planning and erosion control that would be treated for a local land use application. This is a forested site. We will be clearing the tree, about 1.5 to 2 acres of trees to put up the facility. Obviously, that will make more runoff happen. So to counteract that and to maintain existing drainage patterns and mitigate peak rates of runoff and treat water quality from the imperviousness that we're proposing, that's a permanent stormwater basin. And I think it's largely not different than what you would see in a local land use application. So just wanted to shed some color on that. And that design, as Alicia said, is approved by the Siting Council. We do need to secure CTD stormwater permits for this project being a state agency project. And we're not looking for any waivers from the state for anything here. We're meeting the wetland setbacks, we're meeting the stormwater regulations, the erosion control regulations, and yeah, we're not looking for any leniency on this project from the state.
Sorry, just so I have clarity too. Your approval, from my understanding, isn't so much in the number of containers trying to pack in. Your approval is to hit a certain megawatt point and try to maintain that, right? Correct? Is that the idea? Sort of in similar lines to a solar plan where you're trying to hit a certain power level, and whatever the makeup ends up being for that site is what's going on there. So if it's 20 units or it's 25 units, you're trying to hit that certain approved megawattage. Is that correct?
I'll set the table and then I'll pass it to you. So I'll set the table by saying this the Connecticut Siting Council truly is a siting board. They're looking for us to find the correct site to put this on. They're looking for the correct footprint, as Alicia touched on. I'm going to kick it to you because it may be beneficial to talk a little bit about your power purchase agreement, which is East Point will have contract to sell their power. I hope I'm not misspeaking. You can correct me if I did. But they will have a contract with the utility company to sell power to them. They will not be able to go over that power, but they can go under it. So if it's a 17.9 megawatts, they cannot get paid if they do 20 megawatts. They will get paid directly if they do 10, but that won't be financially viable for them. So the idea is they're capped at the amount of power that they can sell, but they do have the opportunity to go lower if they absolutely need to.
So I guess as you're explaining that too, is there a mechanism if you decide, well, 17 isn't enough and I want to go to 20 or I want to go to 25, is there a mechanism that brings you to that level?
You would have to go back through the whole entire interconnection process. And just to give you an idea, that process, this has been in process with the interconnection for I think 3 years now. And we're still not, we should be getting our finalized interconnection agreement like July next year. I mean, it really takes a long time. And that's because they study all the electrical grid and how it interconnects and hence interconnection and what, if any, upgrades would need to happen to the electrical system around here. I mean, it is a very extensive process because they have to make sure that we can interconnect it, you know, and they tell us, like, if we wanted to do 50 megawatts or something like that, and the system right here would not allow it, they would say, no, you can only do 17.3. So 17.3 is set in stone. Like you said, we can go under, but we cannot go over. So we would have to go all through that process again, which takes a gajillion years and does cost a pretty good amount of money.
So as technology progresses, the composition of this site could change, but you won't ever be able to exceed the 17.1 megawatts.
Unless
or whatever
we
it
would
is.
go back through the whole interconnection process, which I don't know if anybody has ever done.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm getting to that. Jessica, I don't know if it's, can you flip a couple slides like over to like slide 8? Okay, keep going. Okay, stay here just for a minute. I just want to elaborate real quick. So this is the state of Connecticut, obviously, and I just wanted to like illustrate. So there's been 8 projects thus far permitted by the Siting Council in the state of Connecticut, and there's 4 pending. Just to give you an idea of how many have been, but there have not, to my knowledge, have been any actually in construction yet. No, there's nothing up and running though in the state of Connecticut yet. So, okay, so now we can go to the the next slide. And this is where I'm gonna elaborate on how the town of Oxford is in this process. Yep.
Of those that were, 8 that were approved, how many are built and operating?
That's, there are not any, to my knowledge, built and operating in the state of Connecticut. Because I think maybe last 3 years, I want to say. Yeah. 100? Thank you, look at that. Well, that's the energy, yeah, but the siting council's been around, so for about 3 years. So this is, a not newer process, but, this hasn't been going on for so long. So this slide is gonna kind of walk you through how Oxford is interconnected, into that process. I'm sorry, I like some dad jokes. So steps 1 and 2, so East Point Energy submits the petition to the Siting Council. That step has already been completed. It was submitted on the 23rd of October and it was accepted on the 28th. Within 30 days of the receipt of petition, the citing council gives notice to all required parties. So an email was sent on 10/28 out to, I mean, the list is very long, but I can tell you who received it in the town of Oxford. So the people that received it in the town of Oxford was the town clerk, first selectman, Steve McCary, the zoning enforcement officer. Pat, you should have received it, and Susan from the Department of Conservation and Wetlands should have received it as well. And in that email, it has a link to the petition and all the documents that support that petition, which there are quite a few. So it would have all the environmental studies, site plan, noise study, visual renderings. I mean, the list goes on. So I would encourage everyone to open that link and get all the documents if you haven't already. Because, and I apologize for this, but this was the soonest hearing we could get in to be able to present all this. But public comment, it doesn't end on 11/22, but the first round of comments that the town of Oxford can submit ends 11/22. But you are involved in this process the whole way along. And I'm gonna let Steve, because he's been through this 100,000 times, elaborate on that just a touch more.
Yeah, I think I've successfully permitted 15 to 20 energy projects in the state. All the solar sites have been successful that we have constructed. So the siting council process, as you guys are aware, it does not include local zoning, it does not include local wetlands, but it does include public outreach, which is why we're here, which is why East Point has, reached out to the town emergency response team, reached out to the planning and zoning staff and the commission. And East Point, as well as the siting council, do take the feelings of the towns very seriously. So, we do implore you guys to, you have every opportunity to submit comments to the siting council. The siting council will take them into consideration in the decision. The siting council will ask us rounds of interrogatories, which we have to respond to. So you guys are an integral part in this process in terms of shaping the project. If you have comments about how it can be improved, how you'd like to see it changed, definitely let the siting council know, and they will flip it to us and ask us to make the changes.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that although this is the first time I'm appearing before all of y'all, sorry, that's my little, yeah, I have been just this year here, March and May, and now today, and I've spoken to Steve, I've spoken to Pat, I've spoken to the fire chief, Jeff Luff regarding taxes, and then even before me, because I put the project over this year, Scott, he's been, I think, communicating with community for like, I think since 2020, on and off. So definitely have been in communication with the community, or with the board, trying to, work out any kinks, get feedback, etc. So for petition projects, which this is considered petition because it's under 65 megawatts, and then if you go over 65 megawatts, it's called an application. For a 65 megawatt project, a public hearing is not automatically required. Only when you go up to the bigger projects is it automatically required. Not saying that it won't happen, because it's at the discretion of the siting council, yes. 5 megawatt, and it had a public hearing today. And he was on it for 3 hours.
So how is the public being notified that they can submit concerns, questions?
So all the abutters of this property were notified. I did get one question via email from the ASMK property that's kind of like cata-cornered, and I sent him, he also got a link and stuff in his butter notice, but I also sent him all the links and everything in an email and explained it to him verbally.
So with regards to Oxford being involved in the process and getting public feedback, are you suggesting that only the abutting properties is what you're looking for, or are you looking for the town as a whole? I would think that people outside of just the abutting properties might have some thoughts on it, or concerns, or input.
I have an answer, but I would rather not say it in a public forum.
Fair enough. No, but the, sorry. Yep. Yeah. Right, no, understood, but the representation is that the public is getting to put their input, but only if you, now I'm hearing only if you're an abutting property, so that's a little bit different. Yeah, fair, yeah. Totally understand that.
So the just to give you an idea, like the Department of Health, the state senators, state representatives, DEEP, CT DEEP. I mean, there are so many people that have received notice. I'm not even scratching the surface here. I think it was like 20 people. And I understand what you're saying. It's not like local residents aren't, you know, but if we were to, we try to follow the letter of the law, which is abutters, because if you're going to go and do an arbitrary like radius, then someone's gonna automatically say, well, hey, I was outside that radius. Why wasn't I notified? And it's like,
Where's the cutoff point?
yeah, where's the cutoff, right?
Understood. I mean, it just, again, we're trying to work with the public. I'm gonna hit the bare minimum. Those are two very different things in my mind. It's a property in Oxford, right? I think the public in Oxford would at least be wanting to have the awareness of this going on. And if there is the potential to be able to provide feedback, that would be great. But I'm trying to keep the public involved, but I'm only contacting the abutting properties. Those are not the same things to me, right?
Right, I understand your concern. I'm totally with you, and I understand your concern.
Thank you.
Oh, so anyhow, let me just, so that's the end of my presentation. The last page just gives you the link and gives you some more facts about the petition. And we have a website actually set up for the project as well, oxfordenergycenter.com. And it has a lot of fact sheets on it, additional information. It has space on there for people to contact us for questions. I mean, you know, whatever we can do, like we want to be a good neighbor. That's why we've already reached out to the fire department, you know, and tried to, you know, give zoning, you know, an ability to comment on the plans, etc. And I understand your concern, but the reason I'm here tonight is for you, I'm asking you guys for your support on our application for this site. I mean, we really feel like it's in good space. It's well away from residences. It's doing a good use of the property. I mean, just in regards to tax base, that parcel is not really contributing to the tax base of this community. And this would be, you know, like $5 million. And it could help out a lot of stuff. So I really would, you know, appreciate your approval. Or not approval, but, you know, positive recommendation. And then Sean wants to tell you something.
Good. I just wanted to add one thing. I'd be remiss. One of our senior project engineers at ESRG works at EPRI, so I'll get in trouble if I don't come back with some of the statistics quickly. But as we said, that 5 years since about 2018 when the reporting of EPRI and the others started, we didn't have NFPA 55, we didn't have any of the UL criteria, so there were more incidents then. There were about 9.2 percentage failures per deployed gigawatt. We're down in 2023 to about 0.2, about a 97% reduction. EPRI actually just came out with a white paper on this in the last 3 months, specifically talking about using that failure database you were referencing and saying, okay, here's where we were in 2018, here's where we are now in 2023. So that if Alicia wants that, I can definitely get that to her.
I'll get Sean to send that to me, and then can I just send it to Pat?
Send it to Jessica, please.
What are you sending me?
gonna send you, all these links and
I'm
information.
sending them right now. I got an email, I'm forwarding it to all of them.
Yeah, but he has additional,
I'll be able to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
Yeah.
we have even more information, to give,
Oh, okay.
because he, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You said your last name.
sorry.
He, had some questions.
Make sure you have all that, yeah. And like I said, I'm not here to say there's a 0% failure rate on absolutely anything in the world. I know that to not be true. But when we talk about similar light industrial use, especially electrical substations, general service criteria that exists out there in the community now, you're looking at about a 0.3 to a 0.9% annualized failure rate, so over the lifespan of the entire systems entity. Right now, at that 0.2, you're generally looking at it significantly lower.
Kevin?
Oh, yeah. No, and that's a great point. And so when I talk about these failure rates, we're talking about the first step in hazard mitigation. We don't want any bad things to happen. So when we say, okay, if we're down to in that 0.2% of a lifetime failure rate, but we need to address that. I'm the fire service. Our entire living's off that 1% chance thing going wrong. Let's figure out what we do in that instance. In training the fire department and laying out the plan, I have to do the hardest possible thing with firefighters, and I say this as one, is to tell them to not do much. The goal in a failure, whether thermal runaway or small scale fire and enclosure, would not involve the fire department entering it, approaching it, touching it, going near it by any means. By design, passive and active, the point is for this to not be able to spread anywhere. Once there is, let's say there were a fire or a thermal runaway event in that enclosure, I have bad news for East Point, that unit doesn't do anything anymore, right? That's,
And in that time, you would have to operate, decommission that according to
and as the commissioner said, and I'm a on the street incident commander still. I'm used to, okay, when we pull up, what do we need to do? I want them to do almost nothing. I want them to surround an area, control traffic, let the other subject matter experts give them information, because as the gentleman said, we're letting this thing burn, generally speaking. And that's not doing nothing. It's called non-interventionist strategy. It's actually intentional, because the elements that can burn in there, the plastics, the insulation, are going to burn. You can decide by pouring water on them sometimes how long you want that to happen. Do we want this to be done in an hour? Do we want it to last 20 hours? Same amount of combustibles are going to burn either way. None. Correct. Yeah. Yep. Yes, and there's always the instruction if there's any worry about propagation or spread to another container, let's say a maintenance vehicle parked next to it. We could use water to cool those surfaces and not allow a fire to spread to it, but our goal is not actually water extinguishment of that fire. It's not the goal we're going for.
We're trying to cover all the bases.
I'm glad they know I've read their letters, but I guess
Hypothetical system. Yeah, so as a reminder, when we look at the failures that have happened, generally the initial failures are cell size. So we're talking large AA batteries. A cell goes into a rack, which goes into a module. While we say instances are low, full-scale failures or fire consumptions of units are even more exceptionally rare. Generally, the failures are small and localized. I'm not bouncing around, but to say what volume of smoke comes off is kind of challenging, because that's heat release rate times product of combustible. So there would be smoke generated from it that would dissipate up into the atmosphere, but as I said before, it's similar to, you know, the light industrial use to the south of it or the house next to it. It would generate smoke. How that smoke would travel and to ensure that there's no additional toxicity hazard above and beyond a normal fire is what their goal is. Very similar theory. So in the propane tank, the propane is the fuel, it's inside the tank. If we're not gonna have a rupture, we're gonna let that fire burn. What's your gas grill? Nothing but burn off propane over time, right? We just don't want it to do it faster than relief valves can handle. If it was, you know, spraying flame onto your siding, different issue. This is exactly the same situation when we say, okay, our non-interventionist strategy is, this is things in front of us, it's the size of a small car, is the rack that's on fire. Okay, we're gonna wait, let it burn, and now it's done. Like you said, no life safety hazard, no threat of propagation, we're done.
Now, these battery units are inside a container. Is there any fire suppression systems built into the containers?
So that's an interesting point. So they're inside actual multiple containers. Like we said, there's kind of layers. So cells, metal insulation, that goes into modules, which are metal and insulation, that goes into racks. So there's, imagine multiple layers of this. Powin, the manufacturer they're looking at, identifying right now, even comes out in their literature and basically says, we have no credible evidence that a suppression system installed will put out this fire any quicker than letting it burn. Similar to a firefighter applying water onto it. They're basically saying it's not doing the point of us. They do, Powin does offer options, including some types of suppression inside the containers, et cetera. They come out in their documents and say, we have no research science to say this does anything, guys, but there's an option of that down the road, and that would be kind of the coordination between East Point to make sure it meets NFPA 855, all the applicable fire codes.
I guess I'm visualizing these containers, like shipping containers type things.
Similar, that's a good way, yeah.
Okay. Is the fire pretty well be contained within the container?
Yes. So all these UL numbers I'm firing off, the entire purpose of that is to avoid what's called propagation. So fire spreading from that container outside of the container. It's like a shipping container, but you can't enter it. Everything's accessible from the outside by doors. There's no inside, if that makes sense, kind of. And the gentleman mentioned a fire in Australia. I'm familiar with the manufacturer in that. They actually did full-scale testing afterwards and attempted to set conditions that would create fire spread, and they couldn't intentionally do it.
My one last thought is, you talk about an emergency plan, working with Scott Pelletier on that. Is that going to be something that is filed with all, you know, to Kevin's point, we have multiple fire stations around, volunteer, full-time, or is that a plan that's going to be filed with, trained to with all of them, and because not doing anything isn't usually the natural response. And then, you know, obviously POC, somebody who's actually going to manage that emergency on ground from, I would imagine, that your team, right, dictating exactly what the right response is. But is all of that going to be filed and trained to the various teams about Oxford?
Yeah, one element of the ERP, the emergency response plan, is that it's to be reviewed and updated if information changes annually. And there's actually a section within the ERP specific about that procedure, when it happens, and that it's logged that it's happened. The actual plan itself, the document sits physically on site in whatever your fire chief or fire marshal deems. Some go with a Knox box setup or a lock box or a cap. And that's why it's important. We want to come to them and we go, how is it going to work best for you and your department and your response capability? Right. It might be in the rig, it might be computerized. Every community is a little different in that sense. In terms of that information going out, none of this is a secret. So if that training is involving, if you know, you or the town or the chief or marshal identify, hey, it's important we bring in our partner agencies, great, let's go. You know, that information can go out as much as needed.
Okay.
No. Yep. And it's not going to be complete until we get the input from the chief and the marshal, because we really want it to be tailored to your community.
Pelletier.
Yeah, and I can't teach fire departments over PDF. We put hard hats on and we go out to the site. Once it's under construction, we go, here's what we do.
Seems like the onus is on the firehouse itself on whether or not they should go out to the other local firehouses. It's not a communication from you guys to say, hey, best practices to talk to Beacon Falls, talk to Southbury, or anything like that.
Yeah, and again, if you or the town or anyone wants us to, I'd be happy to. We generally don't see that, just because, again, the actual response required for these incidents are smaller than appears on the media sometimes, or in 2017 or 2018 incidents. I'm not saying you wouldn't need mutual aid companies, volunteer service, even paid service. You can need them. Yeah.
Scott Pelletier will take care of it.
Yeah. I'd be happy to engage any partners they have.
And we're also, I mean, we are referring to the town of Oxford also out of respect as well. He knows what he needs for this town. He knows what he wants, and he knows what you guys as a community expect. So we're letting him guide us to the best practices, what he needs. That's, he knows this town better. I don't know this town better.
I'm a chief officer. If somebody came in my community and told me how I was going to do things, that's not happening, right? I respect that. I understand that. And that's why I serve, as I said, a translator. I sit down, I go, here's what I know about batteries in these systems. What do we do to make your community and your people safe? What's interesting with this compared to your other substations and electrical infrastructure in town is exactly that. I can guarantee you, for all your transformers you got in town, there's nobody staring at a computer waiting for it to deviate 1% of temperature. So that's right now, that's really where this industry adds safety to the grid.
How much is it gonna cost to build this facility? You must have a budget or an estimate.
I honestly don't,
Okay.
And one thing's in terms of the emergency response plan, to Alicia's point, there's some areas, and I explained to the chief, that it kind of says, hey, this final configuration, like fire suppression within the units, will be determined upon selection of the unit. It's because we're how many years out from this being a real tangible thing. If we look back in 2018 and said we'd be here 5 years from now, who knows what it looks like 18 months from now?
Now, I notice on here it says, provide feedback on the project deciding council by 11/22. That's 3 days from now. And it says, you're looking for a statement of support for the proposed project. Does that come from our Board of Selectmen?
When does this due? These comments and questions? When does it due? When? When? It's short notice for us. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but this is short notice. Comment about it.
Yeah, 3 days.
I heard you guys go online and check it out. Not Facebook, it ain't Twitter. It's actual institute. due respect, with all due respect, who do you have contact with?
I've had contact with the fire chief,
Gary?
I want to say his name was Michael. It wasn't
Michael Hurd.
I remember it. I did briefly run that by him, section by him. Felt like, wetlands buffer. I showed him the poles going through, and he was like, I can't tell you who all Scott has talked to, in the previous past, but, like, we talked to most of the town. We have not, like you said, gone out to the public.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Jeff left, yes. Appendix L. Yeah, and I don't have all of Scott's, but I know he's.
The issue is whether we support this or not, the siting council will do what the siting council wants. But theirs is the final decision. Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. Theirs is the final decision. If they decide they want this, it'll be here. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I'm just saying that there's a reality here.
Yes, there is reality.
And, we're looking at a 3-day window for this commission to discuss it. I know.
Problem with it.
Thing is, we don't have more time. That's another reality. What? Well, the thing is this, she was in contact with our economic development person.
Hi,
Hi.
let me, I'm gonna speak to our attorney, but you may, be able to get an extension of comment. And I will also ask him, about 3 months is the evidence, period, and we were pretty sure that have commentary. So just let me get some of the facts, together with our attorney. We may be able to get you an extension.
That was cool.
Utilize the links that were sent to the various people in the town, because then you can have like a full package, it's expensive,
For this commission, please use Jessica as your contact person, not Steve. Steve's out on medical leave. I don't know when he's gonna be back. What?
rotator cuff. I talked to him last week. He was like, maybe I'll come, but I might be, medicated. I was like, okay, maybe not.
So then I guess the question is, your ask is a statement of support. Were you looking to have that by the 22nd without an extension, or do we have more time to submit that?
I need to talk to Ken, like I said, and see if we get an extension.
'Cause-
But it's not like, but that's what we're trying to say,
Yeah.
is there's like it's gonna be like 3 months for an reply, and they get questions and reply. So this is gonna go on for a while. It takes about 6 months for, the average application.
I feel, I feel the same if we would, if we could have more time. I'm not necessarily against it. I think that the idea of this is sound. It's just, get 3 days. We get 3 seconds to make this decision of support. It would be nice to have the extra time. Right.
It is such a weird number, but that's what I'm saying. Interconnection, 17.3 megawatts for some reason. That's right.
I would estimate, I was just pulled up the schedule. Follow the schedule on there. They update it eventually, we're less than a month into this application. But eventually it will say, I would guess they probably set the schedule in the next month, 4 to 6 weeks, where it'll say, like, which is usually somewhere around the
Okay with that. I've had worse. Yeah, I'm okay.
Our commission in 2021, and it was during a time when we were on.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, I can't remember.
So it goes back a while.
2021.
Jeff, I think Jeff is.
No, I'm trying to,
Thank you. I just want to say thank you again for hearing us and asking so many great questions. And don't be shy, ask questions. The information on the website, I'll send that again to Jessica and send the other information we talked about.
thank you. All right, where are we at?
Review and approve 2025 regular meeting schedule.
Do we have that?
It's in the packet.
Okay.
First and third Tuesday of every month in 2025. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed 2025 regular meeting schedule that schedules the regular meetings on the first and third Tuesday of every month in 2025.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, Motion carried. Do you have the copy for us to sign? Can we sign one of
You can
these?
sign that one.
I know, and I can scan it and
Okay.
drop it and put it on and certificate.
Black, of course.
Yep.
Pass that down to us.
Okay.
Schedule it, but then we can't sign.
Commissioner training requirements.
That was just a reminder that, you know, everything has to go, I didn't print it out because I emailed it to all of you.
Fine. But it's smart.
Just a reminder.
Okay. Is there any other business the commission needs necessary for discussion? Anyone? Anyone?
Make a
Second?
motion to adjourn. Oh, somebody did?
So,
Second.
Carl, second it. Oh, you did, all right.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Oh, wait, who made that motion? Don, Carl?
Or Dan?
Somebody.
I don't care, anybody.
Somebody.
Somebody did. Tomorrow, I won't be able to make the December 3rd meeting.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna be away.